Hey everyone, welcome back to the Gut Girls podcast. And today your host is just me, Angela. I thought I would take a moment and just jump right in to a hot topic that if you guys have ever done a consult with us here at the Gut Girls, or if you've been on our live calls, you know that one of the major things that affects the gut is stress. But one of the things that no one talks about is a certain kind of stress. So today we're jumping into the stress that no one talks about and what it does to your gut health. And so let me speak to when you if you've been to a doctor and you've told them all of your symptoms and you are expecting this big, like, okay, here's what it is. Here's your diagnoses, here's what's going on with you, and they say to you, it's just stress. And you just melt because you're like, no, it's not just stress. There's something physiologically happening in my body, and I want you to tell me what that is. And I want you to help me know what to do about it. And I want to say, first and foremost, I hear you. I've been there. I know exactly how you feel, but there's more to the story. And that's where I want to meet you today. So one of the stresses that no one talks about, it's not just like the work stress, right? We all think about that. It's not just the stress at home. It's not just the stress of your marriage. It's not just the stress of your kids. It's this unspoken stress, which is called emotional stress. And a lot of you may know that. A lot of you may be listening and you're just like, yes, this is something that I've actually been dealing with for years. I know all about it. I'm very aware of it. And maybe you're already working on something to help you navigate that. But there's actually a lot of people out there they're not even aware of emotional stress. And so I'm kind of speaking to those folks today, and how this may manifest in your life is you may come to us as the Gut Girls and say, I am doing everything right. I am eating clean. I am working out. I am going to bed and getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. I'm doing all the things. And we say to you, hey, but your GI map shows that there's this pattern of stress. And you're like, I don't know where that's coming from. I mean, let's say you walk every day, or maybe you're someone who reads scripture, or maybe you're someone who the gym is your therapy, right? For stress management. And that's great. But the stress I'm talking about is the stress when, so most of you know that I am a practicing chiropractor here in the state of Virginia. And for you all listening as the Gut Girls, I come to you as just a gut health coach. That is, I'm not practicing here on the Gut Girls, but I want to tell you about an experience as a chiropractor. Something that I can do in the office when someone comes to see me is I can put my hands directly on their shoulder and I can feel it. I can feel the stress that they're carrying. And one of the most powerful tools that I have learned over the years is to find that stress and just put my hand on it, just maybe tap, a little bit, put a little bit of pressure on that stress that they're holding, which is a lot of times in their shoulders or their neck muscles, and just say, you can actually let go of that now. Or I might say, man, how was work today? Because I'm feeling you're holding on to something right here. And I've done that so many times that I've had, patients be like, wow, how'd you know that? And so what I'm trying to get across to you right now is it's emotional stress is something that a lot of people aren't aware of. So if you've had a long day at work and you're coming home, but you're still replaying a conversation that you had at work with a colleague, your boss, a client, whether maybe you're a doctor and it's with a patient. And so you're still replaying that in your head. That's emotional stress. If there's maybe a conversation that you've had with your spouse, the same thing. It might not have happened at work, but maybe there's an emotional conversation that you just keep replaying that you had between you and your partner. That's emotional stress. It could be that, you're the type of person that walks into a room, and I say this from experience. This is me to a T. And also, interesting enough, my daughter, but you walk into a room and you just feel the emotional, you navigate the emotional wave, the emotional vibe of the entire room. So you can just walk into a room and you just absorb it. And you're either like, oh crap, this is pretty, like no one's breathing in this room right now. It's pretty tense. that's absorbing, right? That's absorption. You're physically, like the cells in your body, the tissue in your body is absorbing that. And so this is the stress, guys, that no one talks about. And it's not even that no one talks about it. It's that when you talk about it, sometimes the people, they're like, I'm not stressed, or they might say, I've had, clients of ours on Gut Girls say before, I'm actually in the most unstressed season of my life. I'm retired. I get to go tinker around in my garage. I get to do, whatever it is that I want. I'm actually the most not stressed right now. And I actually wrote some of this down. It could be that you're not, like I said, mentally stressed, physically stressed, but there's something about how you're emotionally relating to others in the world. So how are your relationships is really what I'm asking you today. How are your relationships, and how do you navigate those relationships? Are they relationships where, you can show up and be yourself and not take the burden of that fellowship home with you? That's healthy, right? To be able, in today's age, we are able to communicate more than we've ever been able to communicate. And that can be some of the cause of this, but then also some of the healing behind this, to where you can show up and you can, really express to someone what's going on in your life. That's the beauty of relationships. But the real beauty behind that is being able to express that, and for that person to not be able to absorb that and make it their own. And a lot of times in today's day and age, with the resources we have, it's something that we can easily think like, oh, I've got to help this person. I've got to figure out how to help this person. Or gosh, what they're going through, I'm like living it right now. Like my heart is so broken for them, and I can't shake that. And I'm asking you today, like, what do you do with that? Like, what do you do with that? Because that's the stress that's going to show up on your gut test. That's the stress that we're going to see show up on a GI map. And so I challenge you, in a world where we are more exposed than ever to other people's emotional burdens, to the burdens of the world, to the nations, the burdens of nations in the world. What are you doing with that? How is it sitting in your body, and how are you, I wouldn't say managing it, but how are you releasing that? And so a lot of times, when you do, your stool testing with us, and this comes up so often, where, like I said, the pattern shows stress, and the person is like, but that's not me. It's hard to break down that wall and get to the other side and have them become aware of like, oh, but that is me. And so that's what I just wanted to kind of point out today, is that is one of the biggest stressors that I would say we see in Gut Girls. It's like the untalked about stressors, right? And a lot of times that will spill over into how you navigate your day. So for instance, if you are someone who is replaying that conversation over and over again once you've left the office, you just can't leave work behind you. Let me explain how that's going to come out goodness gracious, in your physiology. A lot of times this is where people will come and they'll say like, gosh, I've been told that my adrenals are burnout. And then they chase the adrenals, right? So they're like, what do I have to do? Dr. Google, what are all the adrenal protocols that I need to do to get myself out of this hole? And they do it, and they don't get better. And so the reason why is because the adrenals were the victim, right? So you can support the adrenals all you want, but if you don't go back to your nervous system, and again, the nervous system, we've taught this so much on the Gut Girls, it's how you take in the world around you. Notice that. Let's think about a conversation at work that maybe you can't shake, or you replay it over and over again. When you replay it in your mind, like what happens to your body? What is there tension in the chest? Do you stop breathing? Do you hold your breath? Do you just do what I just did? If you're watching, I basically just like took a step back. I just made space between the screen and myself. What does your body do? And a lot of us are so disconnected from our body that what we end up doing is we keep replaying this mental load of conversation. Let's say I go back to the workplace because it's an easy one that a lot of you are going to be able to relate to. you go back to this conversation. And so you keep replaying it and you're so numb to what your body's doing. You're numb to the chest tension. You're numb to the shallow breathing because it's become your norm. And so, what do? You go for a crunchy snack because you're like, gosh, this is just driving me crazy. This, you play it over and over again. What should I have said differently? Maybe you're just so angry with their action, like you just can't stop playing it. What's going to happen is you're going to go to something crunchy. The nervous system loves to crunch on like food because that actually helps the brain almost like work through the problem, like problem solve and somehow in your mind make it okay. So this is where we start to see, because you're numbing out on what your body's doing internally, you're using external sources to make an internal problem okay. And so if you take nothing else except for this away from the podcast today, it would be that what external sources do you use to make your internal problem okay? And when I talk again, I have to say this so many different ways, is it's a nervous system that's been on such high alert for so long, and nothing externally is actually going to fix that in the end. It's you going internal as well, and you recognizing like, oh, this actually feels super uncomfortable. As I replay that conversation, yeah, this tension in my chest is like, it's painful. Oh my gosh, now it's like radiating to the back of my shoulder. I mean, this is pain. This is chronic pain, right? Think about things like, I'm going to make a bold statement here, but think about things like, take that adrenal depletion or burnout and leave it untreated for years and years and years and years. And this is where we start to see other things show up, like fibromyalgia, where when you go to a physician, it's kind of like an umbrella term. There's actual physiology that goes with this diagnosis. So it's not that it's not a true diagnosis, but it is an umbrella term for a lot of things that are happening inside the body. It's like an umbrella term to say your body can't even be touched right now. There is so much deep pain, and that pain, I challenge you guys to, like, it's so deep, and it's the tissue. You're holding on to something in that tissue. Okay. And we see this then when we do the stool test, the GI map test, of this chronic depletion, this burnout, this insufficiency, gut lacking pattern, where the good guys are just chronically depleted. There's no good bacteria. They're not being fed. They're not being, they're not being collinated. And so you see that, and then you also end up seeing the immune system coming along with it and being burnout. So it's just this chronic depletion of never getting back to the root. And like I said, in a situation like fibromyalgia, it's, again, not that there's not a true physiological change pattern going on in the body. But if you really want to get to the root of it and think back of like, okay, my nervous system is in this chronic pattern. It is stuck of responding to the world around me this way. You really do have to kind of take off the glasses and look and see, how am I patterned? How has culture, the world, everything, your own family, patterned you to respond in a sense, and your own life choices as well, but patterned you to respond that's not serving you anymore. It's not serving you. And I'm not saying that this is something that happens overnight. It's not a quick fix at all, but it's just becoming aware. And once you become aware, that is where that emotional stress can then be addressed. And you can, one of the first things that we talk about in the Gut Girls to deal with emotional stress is grounding. Like when that conversation comes back up with your colleague, your boss, or you start to replay it, go back inside, go back into your body, put your feet on the floor, put both feet on the floor, and just remind yourself, close your eyes and remind yourself, like, I'm actually okay. My feet are touching the floor. I'm not letting myself actually get spiraled up in this emotional stress response. I'm right here. I'm okay. My feet are on the floor. You can put your hand over your heart. You can, say to yourself, like, I'm okay. I'm in this, I'm present. I'm in the moment now. I'm not in that moment. There's so many things you can do. You can go outside and get your, shoes and socks off and put your feet on on grass, just to actually feel something, a different texture, to feel the earth beneath you, to remind you like, I'm actually safe and I'm being held up by the earth right now. Like there's so many different things. This is the diaphragmatic deep breath that you can, put a hand on your chest and put a hand on your belly. And as you breathe in, really let the belly expand, let the body relax. And so a lot of times it's that unspoken stress that we see, and when we go and talk about these things, it's almost laughable to clients because they're like, that can't be it. It's got to be something bigger. It can't be that I just need to ground myself more. It can't be that. And so I'm here today just to remind you, it absolutely can be that. And so I hope this speaks to someone out there listening that maybe you've worked with us and you've heard us talk about stress before, and you're like, I just don't know what that quite is for me. I've heard them say I have a stress pattern. I've heard them talk about this, but I just can't put my finger on what it is that I'm struggling with. Or maybe you are someone who went to a doctor and you were looking for a better answer and they told you it was stress, but they also didn't have the right words to help you understand what it was. Education can be powerful, but it's what you do with it, right? And so this is where in the Gut Girls, we love to hold you in that space that you're trying to work through. And this is what we do so well in our communities. We have live weekly calls that are group calls where women just get to come on and they get to be totally honest about what they're experiencing, what they're going through. And it helps validate so other women to be like, wow, you're going through this too. Awesome. I don't feel alone anymore. But also to share their wins and to help people be like, oh gosh, I never thought of it that way. So it's such a great community that we've built. And so that is something that you get in our memberships with the Gut Girls. And so if this is you and you're trying to navigate it, we welcome you in. We want you to come in and we want you to understand the stress that maybe isn't talked about so much in your life that is holding you back from really making the strides that your body has, the potential that your body has. And so I'm going to leave you with actually a little funny, since this is a shorter podcast. As you all know, Diana and I do the GI map on ourselves. I do it annually. I think Diana does as well, because we believe in it, and we get to see it's almost like a report card. Okay, like every year that I run it, I'm like, okay, how I think I've been doing well. This is like the person that is like, oh yeah, I've been eating super clean, getting all my rest. My stress has been great. And then you get this report card back and you're like, oh, but I still haven't dealt with this thing. It's amazing. It's just such a good report card in a gentle, loving way to remind you of like what you really need to work on. And so I'm at the point this year where I just sent my GI map out, and I am doing one on my 2.5-year-old, because she's been complaining of some tummy stuff. And so at 2.5, when you've got, a little, I call her baby still, but a little toddler complaining of belly pain, you're like, that's not normal. So I sent her, I'm about to send her stool test off. I'm just waiting for that moment, but I'll share with you this and make you laugh. I told her name is Eloise, and I said, Eloise, the other morning, I said, hey babe, you got to let me know when you've got to go poo-poo. I got to collect it. I got to put it in a box and I got to ship it out. And she just looked at me and she was like, collect it? Like literally, it wasn't even that clear because she's a toddler, but I knew what she was saying. And she was like, collect it and put it in a box, with like this question of like, what? And then she just looked at me and goes, that's yucko. And I just died. I was like, yes, it's very yucko, and I'm the one that has to do it. So I'm glad we agree on this. And then I said, I'm going to have to send it to the laboratory. And she couldn't even say laboratory, but she tried so hard. She was like, the lab. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to send it to the laboratory. It was just the cutest thing. And so I just had to share, if anyone out there has kids, they know what you're up to. And in fact, it's been 3 days now. I just seem to keep missing her to collect it. And I think she knows I'm like on a mission. So she keeps avoiding me. And so I'll get it. We'll send it out. I'll probably share with you guys what we find down the road, and maybe even go over my own just to keep you guys in the loop of like, as a gut girl, what does that look like? What does it reveal to me after years and years and years, 10 plus years of doing this? How do I still utilize it today? So excited to share some of that stuff coming up with you. And I can't wait to see you on the next podcast. So enjoy your day.
The Gut Girls podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. We are not acting as licensed medical professionals. Always consult your doctor before making any changes to your health routine.